Foreign policy was supposed to be one of President Joe Biden's strengths, supposed to be an advantage for the Democrats, the Middle East, where he was such an expert. But for the last year, it's been a catastrophe. A wider war is happening. Netanyahu has repeatedly snubbed the U.S., and now, 3 weeks shy of Election Day, the U.S. says it's going to send 100 American troops to Israel. The first deployment of U.S. forces there since the October 7th Hamas attack. The Pentagon also announced Sunday that it would be sending an advanced missile defense system known as THAAD, or Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, to help fend off ballistic missiles. Now, this comes after Iran launched nearly 200 missiles at Israel on October 1st, and as tensions continue to grow in the Middle East.
Meanwhile, Hezbollah launched a swarm of drone attacks Sunday on an Israeli military base in the north of Israel. Killing 4 IDF soldiers and wounding nearly 60 others, the Iranian-backed group said the drone attack was in retaliation of an Israeli attack on Beirut on Thursday. This was an unprecedented attack by Hezbollah, which was able to penetrate Israel's Iron Dome. These strikes are the latest as Israel killed Hezbollah's spiritual, political, and military leader, Hassan Nasrallah, last month. When asked why the U.S. is ramping up, President Biden said to defend Israel. Many wonder how this will be perceived by Harris and Trump supporters. So I have a lot of thoughts on this. I mean, sending 100 troops is not a good look, especially right before the election. 100 troops were sent to help operate this defense weapon, meaning as Iran has advanced military technology and ballistic missiles, the ballistic missiles can get through the Iron Dome. So Israel asked for assistance in blocking those, and that's what this is it's like a defense weapon. It's a complicated battery system that the 100 American troops are being sent to operate. I also was thinking, and I'm not obviously sure on this is all private, were those troops sent to help operate so that it's used as defense against Iran, so that Netanyahu does not use it on other enemies, say Hamas? And on top of all that, I mean, we're just entering a new phase now. I mean, we should be focusing on Gaza and ending this conflict, but Biden, I think he's right in that he wants to neutralize this and prevent further war from occurring so that other folks, including Russia, are not assisting. But it's deeply problematic. It would be, I think, problematic for any administration as long as they're acting in the United States' best interest. I don't think it is U.S. foreign policy. I'm not talking about one leader or the other. Bernie Sanders could be president. I think at the end of the day, U.S. is pushed because of agreements that we have to support Israel, just as France, when we had Trump, was supporting American foreign policy, despite being very frustrated by it.
But previous administrations have, at some point, exercised their leverage over Israel and said enough is enough. Biden, Harris seem unwilling to do that. I consider this a very profound escalation of our involvement in Israel's wars with Hezbollah and with Hamas, etc. Let's be very clear. American ground troops, yes, only to operate a defensive system. Okay, that's where it starts, but what's next? Because they keep asking, Netanyahu, the IDF, they keep asking for more and more and more. We are becoming more entangled, more involved with Israel's war in the Middle East, contrary to what the American people want. The American people do not want to be more involved in what's going on in the Middle East. They say that whether Democrat or Republican, they vote clearly for a break from an interventionist foreign policy. We are being dragged into continuous escalation, continuous warfare with terrorist groups. Look, it's one thing if they want, I don't understand the precise economics going on here. If we want to sell, if they want to pay for weapons from us, that's another matter. But from just the kindness of our heart to give them this, to send our own troops to operate them, this is an expense to the American taxpayers. This is part of, we're paying for another country's defense. Why? We have so many problems here domestically. And is this making us safer? Is this making us better off? I don't think the American people feel that way. So I'm frankly baffled by the Biden-Harris administration's desire to just go along with everything Netanyahu wants, despite privately and sometimes in public being very upset with Netanyahu and what they're doing, but refusing to do anything, to exercise any leverage to deter it. It's a fascinating choice. Doesn't seem to me to be a popular necessarily choice. And I don't think it's one Kamala Harris would depart from whatsoever. this might just be, and for all I know, Donald Trump wouldn't either. I have no idea. I wish he would talk more about how he differs from the current administration on foreign policy. But we are being dragged into a wider war that no one wants, yet we seem powerless, or we're acting powerless to stop. We're not powerless to stop it, but we're behaving as if we are powerless to stop it. Let's be very clear about what we're doing. I want to know what the strategy is, what the plan is to contain this, because there is no appetite among our citizens for escalated war in the Middle East, for good reason.
Listen, Netanyahu, who is supported by a very conservative group of extremists who are also frustrated with him, by the way, or have been at least up until recently, in Israel. The Israeli people are not supportive of Netanyahu. That is something that we have to start with. Netanyahu is the problem. If Netanyahu were to leave power, he would be arrested and locked up on corruption because he was charged with corruption. The United States has an agreement with Israel. The United States feels very concerned that the region is being destabilized and that the countries all around Israel are now ready and willing to attack, which they have. But Netanyahu also propped up Hamas because it was to his favor at the time. And now he's using war and escalating conflict to maintain his power. And he's leveraging what he knows he can leverage with the United States, which is continuous support of the war, even if Joe Biden is actively, openly, and privately antagonistic about his strategy. I mean, Biden has put pressure on other countries to no longer support the funding or support with weapons or funding of Israel, because it's something, I guess, is just against U.S. foreign policy, and Congress would obviously probably agree with him on that. Simultaneously, I think we should have stopped this war early on. There should have been a de-escalation. There should have been mounting pressure to no longer fund the weapons that are going into Gaza. And you know what I find fascinating about this is that Netanyahu spent over a year strategizing with the IDF leaders, the military leadership, on how to have extremely targeted attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon. Yet, they have no targeted attacks in Gaza. In Obama Hospital today, a school was bombed with children. They're supposed to have the most advanced weaponry and sophisticated intelligence in the world, and yet Netanyahu claims, well, you know, there was a member of Hamas in that hospital, so we had to obliterate hundreds of people, kill them. You know, these children who don't have arms, who've lost their parents, parents who've lost their children. You know, 1 in 3 people from Gaza right now are displaced at this point. Over 40,000 people have been killed, majority women and children, and they're supposed to have this targeted operation, which seemed to work with Lebanon, but not in Gaza. So, I mean, if I were the Biden administration right now, I would be very firmly pushing back. They want to de-escalate, then it has to be targeted. We cannot have a situation in which there is some sort of escalation and Iran gets so mad that they bomb Israel and they hit American troops now. This is a problem that Biden should have faced early, and he did not. And now we're in a situation in which it's going to be very hard to disentangle, because the United States foreign policy is to stabilize the region, because it has an effect on democracy at whole, including at home. Whether Americans are aware of it or not, they still do support Israel, by the way.
The only thing I would quibble with there is the idea that this would be a different situation absent Netanyahu. You're right that he's unpopular even among very people who support the policy, but that's the problem. Israel, as far as I can tell from public opinion polling, really does support the people of Israel. Not necessarily Netanyahu, but they support what's going on in Gaza and elsewhere. So it is more, even if the administration were to be replaced, and I think you could even make a conservative argument or a pro-Israel argument that Netanyahu, having presided over such a profound security failing and having been involved in the propping up of Hamas, is morally culpable for what happened, and obviously there's the criminal issues and all of that. But I don't know that there would be a drastically different policy under a different Israeli leader, given Israeli public opinion. Obviously, we can't know exactly. Got to leave it there. More Rising right after this.